Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. We are live and national. Thanks for joining us. I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys on open phones across America. You know the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And the big news today, Trump says he's declassifying the JFK files, the RFK files, the MLK files, and that's just the beginning of it. So we're going to find out the real deal behind those things. I'm still waiting to find out what's going on with the drones. But in some really big news, just as they say, right, promises made, promises kept, there's a lot of movement going on, and the Fox News channel was embedded with ICE as they did their first pre-dawn raid today in Boston, of all places. So if they're doing it in Boston, you can only imagine what's going on at the southern border and other places. But they went around. They got a bunch of different people. We've got a little bit of the report from Fox News. I want you to listen to this.
Good morning, everyone.
It's a frigid 5 degrees in the pre-dawn hours just outside of Boston, where this team of elite ICE officers is briefing on their targets for the day.
We're going to be targeting some extremely violent offenders today.
Within moments, the officers are on the move, with eyes on their first target.
Looks like we got movement, target vehicle coming out.
They quickly take him into custody. He's an MS-13 gang member wanted in El Salvador for aggravated murder. And he has an Interpol red notice out for his arrest.
We are targeting very violent threats to our community.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
ICE Boston quickly takes down its next targets, including this illegal alien from Brazil who has an Interpol red notice for armed robbery. This Salvadoran illegal alien charged locally with rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Yo, ¿cómo se llama?
And this Dominican illegal alien charged with assault with a deadly weapon and heroin trafficking. Officers also arrested this Guatemalan MS-13 gang member facing gun charges.
So there you go. The ICE folks in Boston and elsewhere are taking what they call a worst first approach as they go out there. And it was great. Let me tell you, I mean, it was great to see the immigrations and customs enforcement people in action, right? Getting out there, getting these guys from MS-13, whether they were rapists, the Haitian guy, who, again, if you heard that clip, and maybe later we'll isolate that clip of just the Haitian guy who they grabbed. He said, he's not going back to Haiti. I'm not going back. And he said, thank goodness for Obama. Listen to this carefully.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
He said, love F Trump, love Biden, thank Obama for everything he did for me. His English is fantastic. I don't hear any accent. So the guy's likely been in the country for a long time. And it just goes to show you, man, thank God, right? Thank God we have a list of these bad guys and we're able to get them quickly and get them out of the country. Because who needs people that when they're getting locked up, that's what they yell. The last words are F Trump, love Biden, thank Obama for everything he's done. This is what our criminals are shouting. What does that tell you? I mean, let me tell you, that to me, it speaks volumes. And for years, I've been trying to make a case, right, to a lot of people. And I'm not saying Democrats are bad, the left is evil, although that's ultimately what it's tantamount to. But what I try to say is that not all Democrats are bad, but it seems like all the bad guys love to be Democrats, just like this, right? This guy said, love Biden, thank Obama for everything he's done. This guy's got 17 arrests or whatever the case was. I mean, absolute insanity. These are the people that have to go. I'm glad they're taking this worst first approach. Borders are Homan saying that these arrests are something that could happen in some jurisdictions, and good. I'm glad that they're happening. I really am, because it's incredibly important, in my opinion, to get this type of thing done. If we don't get it done, Trump looks like he's not doing what he said he was going to do. It's bad enough I got trolls all over my social media page asking me if the war in Ukraine is over because there's been more than 24 hours. And I liken this to, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. There's no question that Trump built a wall. And there's no question that in the grand scheme of things that Mexico ended up paying, right, through the USMCA. Did they directly pay for the wall? Perhaps not, but he made them pay ultimately. And I think you have to take things with a grain of salt, right? You've got to be realistic here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts to this. I think Trump, in the 3 days he's been there, has done more than Biden's done in the 4 years he was there to make things better, right? Obviously, Biden did a lot to make things worse. Anyway, that's part of what's going on with immigration. And I think there was another immigration that I wanted to play for you. It's really, really interesting, but I'll get to that a little bit later. What I wanted to get into now is El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, Donald J. Trump, our president, 45 and 47, and he addressed the World Economic Forum today. And this is good because he said a lot of things, right? He talked about stopping the border invasion, which I think is key. He talked about deregulating things in America. And he also talked about tariffs. And that was the best place, I think, to bring this conversation of tariffs, was to the World Economic Forum, because everybody in the world is gathered at the WEF, right, in Davos, Switzerland. Listen to this.
My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt. Under the Trump administration, there will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA.
USA, USA. I love it. Trump is out there letting the world know. He spoke at the WEF Forum, the World Economic Forum, so that Klaus Schwab and his friends were able to hear it, but he didn't show up. And he didn't honor them with their presence, but he did make his presence felt on a video, and I thought that was the right way to do it. So I'm happy to hear that. And he's been making his presence felt in a number of ways, right? Not the least of which is a lot of what we're seeing with DEI and all of that slowly but surely dissipating. And I think that's a good thing. So I want to get into that straight ahead. And, of course, your calls and more. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
We're seeing a sweeping dismantling of diversity and inclusion programs in federal government. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI employees, will be put on paid leave at 5 p.m. today. Any DEI-related web pages by the Office of Personnel Management will be taken down as well. President Trump signed a new executive order called Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. This could mean overturning anti-bias training to things like funding for minority farmers and homeowners. Trump calling all of this discrimination and insisting on only merit-based hiring.
That is a report from Eileen Cruz, ABC News Los Angeles. And that's the big story, right? I think this is excellent news that we have the end of DEI as we know it. And I want to dig into this with somebody who is in the know on this and so many other things. We've had him on the show before. I'm happy to have him back. Ian Pryor is Senior Advisor with America First Legal, and he's a former spokesperson at the Department of Justice. Ian Pryor, welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Let's dig into this. So I know today I saw some articles and some reports about different senior executives that were the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and their titles have now magically changed to senior executive as they plan their next step. And it's great to see that the president's agenda is firing on all cylinders, from bringing hostages back away from Hamas and everything else that he's doing. What do you think the days to come look like for this DEI initiative?
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point, which is a lot of these individuals and these departments and agencies have started changing their titles, knowing this stuff was going to happen. And we've seen this, throughout the country at local levels, right, where we had parents complaining about critical race theory in schools, so they change it to something. But what's so great is that the Trump team, they were well ahead of that, because as soon as that gets out, they've got letters going to these different agencies and departments saying that if you hear about this, you can call us within 10 days. There'll be no repercussions. And if you don't call us after you hear about it within 10 days, there will be repercussions. So they're not falling for this game. And I think it's important. And he's come in and he knows exactly what he needs to do to really tear this out by the roots. He served for 4 years, and then he's had 4 years to watch what happened under the Biden administration. And it's clear that he and his team came in here ready to go. And quite frankly, I don't think the opposition knows what's hit him.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And I think the point you just made is a really, really good one, and it needs to be underscored. Probably the worst thing that they could have done was the shenanigans in the 2020 election, because it really gave Trump an opportunity to sit back and put together a master plan for 4 straight years and amass the right team to do it, to hit the ground running. And it appears from every angle that that's happening. Now, what do you think it looks like as they actually do it? The impacts of no longer using race to hire and actually using merit?
Well, I think for starters, you're going to have a better workforce. You're not going to have positions that are really just complete waste of time, that are forcing employees to undergo these woke indoctrination sessions that take away from their workday when they could actually be doing work on behalf of the American people. I think number 2 is you're going to see it trickle down into states, localities that get these grants from the federal government. We've seen this throughout America, and they take the federal money and they use it to implement these DEI programs, whether it's at the local government, whether it's in schools, whether it's in police departments, wherever. That's going to end. So you're going to just have far more competent people that are being picked on the basis of merit, not because some theory of trying to right some social wrongs that is driving the hiring throughout this country.
I love it. Folks, we're on with Ian Pryor. He is senior advisor at America First Legal, and he was at the Justice Department before that, talking about this DEI stuff. And there's quite a bit, I believe, that's going on in addition to the DEI stuff, when we're talking about the dismantling of the swamp, slowly draining the swamp, what do you think is the next shoe to fall in that regard?
Well, yeah, I go back to sort of these federal funding mechanisms. You talk about higher education, you talk about K through 12. These higher education facilities are getting, billions of dollars from the federal government, whether it's through student loans or grants. And what are they doing? They're churning out, woke studies majors. And that's not going to drive a competitive workforce in America. And it also perpetuates the stereotyping that is a result of DEI. So now you're going to start seeing, whether it's the Department of Justice, whether it's the Department of Education, going after these higher education institutions and K through 12 and saying, look, if we're going to investigate you, and if we find you're doing this, then we're going to pull your federal funding. For example, I don't believe that, at least under Title IX, any school has ever lost federal funding. But now you have, there's only male and female, and that's the policy of the government. And, our enforcement arms, whether it's Department of Education, Department of Justice, are going to enforce along those lines. So if you've got a boy in girls sports that's taking away opportunities from the female, that's discrimination. We no longer consider gender identity as a factor. And if you don't fix that, you're going to lose your federal funding under Title IX. Same thing with Title VI. If you're forcing kids to go through these woke indoctrination sessions or teachers to do it, we're either going to investigate you through the EEOC or we're going to investigate you through the Department of Justice under Title VI.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that this is the exact approach that we have to have, right? There has to be accountability. You have to have a mechanism in place where it disincentivizes people doing the wrong thing. And I think for too long we've had the exact opposite, where the left within the government, the left within the media, and the left everywhere else kind of concerted their energy together and said, we're going to do whatever we want. And we've seen the fallout of that. And this is clearly, I guess, the day of reckoning, if you will, Ian Pryor.
Yeah, I go back, I think it was Andrew Jackson's quote about, a Supreme Court decision where the court has made their decision, now let them enforce it. Well, we've seen with the Harvard admissions case last year, or now a year and a half ago, the Supreme Court decision on these diversity issues. But, there was nobody there to enforce it, whether it was the Department of Justice, whether it was the EEOC. Well, now the enforcement mechanism is in place. And, at America First Legal, we've been sending letter after letter to the EEOC asking for Title VII investigations for employment discrimination on various companies, from the airline industries to, car companies to the NFL, Major League Baseball. Think about the NFL for a second, right? They have the Rooney Rule. Well, that is patently racist. And right now you have a team, right, the Detroit Lions, that lost two of their coordinators. Aaron Glenn goes to the New York Jets. Ben Johnson goes to the Chicago Bears. Now, the Detroit Lions get 2 third-round picks from the Jets because they developed a minority coordinator to become a head coach. But no picks from the Chicago Bears for developing Ben Johnson to be a head coach. Well, how about you just have something where if you develop a coordinator to become a head coach and they leave, you get a draft pick? Why does it have to be about race?
I'm buying what you're selling, Ian Pryor. Folks, we're coming right back with Ian Pryor from America First Legal, and we're going to talk about Trump's executive order on trans. We're going to get into that because the media is trying to skewer him, but I think he did the right thing. Folks, don't go anywhere. Don't move a muscle. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back with our guest, Ian Pryor, Senior Advisor with America First Legal. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense. And these are policies that were absolute nonsense. throughout the government and the private sector. With the recent yet somewhat unexpected great Supreme Court decision just made, America will once again become a merit-based country. You have to hear that word, merit-based country. And I've made it official, an official policy of the United States, that there are only two genders, male and female. And we will have no men participating in women's sports, and transgender operations, which became the rage, will occur very rarely.
That, of course, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, now the 47th president, and weighing in on these executive orders that he issued on this transgender topic. And good for him, good for America. But, of course, that comes with a price. And attorney Chase Strangio, who is with the ACLU and is transgender himself, he is the deputy director for transgender justice at the ACLU. And he argued in a couple of cases, or at least one case that I know of, before the U.S. Supreme Court in this last go-round. And he was weighing in on this, trying to skewer Trump in the media, talking about the parameters of this executive order.
Any instructions in this one executive order, including this directive to HUD to issue proposed regulations to, in essence, exclude trans people from various forms of shelter system under the auspices that a trans person is an inherent threat to non-transgender women. Obviously, that just enhances the risk that transgender people face in society if we are deemed as a threat to others simply by existing.
All right, so Ian Pryor is our guest. He's with America First Legal, formerly with the Department of Justice. And Ian Pryor, I want to know, is what President Trump issued something that says that trans people are a threat?
No, absolutely not. And, you know, what Strangio just said there, you know, they're being denied shelter. No, they're not being denied shelter. They're being denied shelters for the opposite sex. Can still go to the shelter of their sex and be sheltered. Look, we just had a situation in Arlington, Virginia, where you had a male, and this guy looked like a male. He looked like Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. And he's a sex offender, and he was using a girl's bathroom at a pool that is managed by the local school system, fully nude, exposing himself to all these women. They're like, what is this? And they went to go arrest the guy. And he said, well, you know, I'm trans. Well, probably he's not trans, probably trying to get out of arrest. But this idea that, well, it's never a danger and nobody's ever going to take advantage of this, it's nonsense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just think it's just so interesting, the way they rhetorically spin this stuff in the media. And on its face, these are pretty sensible things, right? You know, boys go over here, girls go over there. There's only two genders. That's the U.S. policy. I think that's fair. It's kind of been like that most of eternity, and it's only been in question for a little bit. Isn't it crazy to you? It is, at least to me, that people really debate this.
Yeah, you know, I was talking to somebody today, and it's a great executive order, but it's also kind of crazy that we have to have an executive order that says that. You know, the left, they were supposed to be the side of science when, you know, they're anything but that. And look, this has creeped in everywhere. I mean, you're, you know, K through 12 schools where all you have to do is not even be transgender. You're just gender expansive, whatever that means, right? So you can pick one of the panoply of genders that, you know, somebody dreamed up on a bad LSD trip, and you get to use whatever bathroom you want. And if you don't have that policy, well, it's discrimination. No, it's not. It's called normal, right? I mean, it has been this way for time immemorial until really probably 2014, I think, is when the Obama administration started slowly pushing this. And then it went into overdrive under the Biden administration. I think now we've seen, you know, the left has so overreached, especially on this particular issue, that, you know, people just don't trust them anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how could you, right? When you're really defying some of the simplest part of nature. And this is, I think, why people are up in arms about this, and rightfully so. Now, Ian Pryor, do you think that Chase Strangio is going to go away after this, or does he come back with a bigger and better lawsuit?
I don't think they're going to go away, but I do think you're going to stop seeing sort of the mainstream leftist media focusing on this issue quite as much because they know it's a losing issue. They know that, if they want to speak to America after the results of November, which were a clear referendum on them, this is one of those issues that they're probably going to want to leave behind. And if you look at the people that are fervent supporters of this issue, those are, and I swear, those are probably the most crazy people in America. They are angry, they are hateful, and I think for people that see just what they will do to support this non-biological, non-scientific mission, it really turns people off and is a harm to their cause. But I think it's too late. I think that this is going to be relegated to the dustbin of history in short order.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, Ian Pryor, I want to take the minute or so that we have remaining to let everybody know the work that you're doing at America First Legal and how they can, learn more about it and follow you.
Certainly. So they can go to aflegal.org. We're a public interest law firm. These are the kind of cases we litigate, whether it's, standing up for somebody that's been terminated because they didn't adhere to, their anti-racist training.
Right, or some other leftist cause. And sadly, this is one of those things that probably, like you said, won't go away. But folks, I want to remind you that you can always check them out at AF Legal on the social media as well as online. Ian Pryor, I want to thank you for being here. Folks, more to come straight ahead. Your calls and a whole lot more. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, America, and we continue our conversation. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ if you want to join us, and I encourage you to do that. But before I take any calls, I want to make sure I cover something, because this is a clip that I saw on social media, and as you guys know, I used to be the director of special operations for James O'Keefe's organization. And we did all sorts of spying and movie production, and it was really fun. We made these documentaries, a lot of really interesting and fun work on the time that I was with him. It was about 10 years back. And I like to call him O'Kizzle Ma Nizzle. And James O'Keefe, O'Kizzle Ma Nizzle, he's got a good one. He's got a good one that he released yesterday night, and today a follow-up on it. And in true O'Keefe style, he always puts out the story, and then the next day he does the ambush reaction. After they're clearly getting skewered by the people seeing the story. Getting them on social media, saying what's going on, how could you? And in this situation, you got this guy Byron Cohen, I think his name is, and he is a White House advisor to Biden, working in the Office of Pandemic Response on policy and some other stuff. And he goes out with an undercover reporter, and she's posing as a female that I'm guessing is a friend or is interested in him some way, and she's asking him questions. And like many guys, he starts to pontificate and pound on his chest a little bit and kind of show off, be like, well, since I work in the White House, I'll tell you what's really going on here. And, and he goes into what the deep state is really all about. This is terrific. James O'Keefe sets it up lovely here. Listen to this.
Meet Byron Cohen, an advisor at the White House.
RFK Jr. is a very bad pick for HHS. There's a good chance that the bureaucracy just crushes him.
Is there anything that you're going to do?
I would consider slowing things down. I can't really think of anyone who I would less rather have be president.
Now, hold on. Before we go any further, I want you to just know that this guy is explaining not only how the deep state operates, but what exactly they can do because they don't like Trump and they want to slow him down, and because they think that RFK Jr. is a bad pick to run the HHS, the Health and Human Services Department. Go ahead.
I think they'll do it when RFK gets in.
One thing you might be able to do to sort of make him think like something is happening when it's not.
The White House advisor explains how the administrative state creates deceptive commissions to hinder executive decisions.
One of the ways you can slow things down in a bureaucracy is you can commit to studying something. Put together a commission. Mr. Secretary, we're going to put together a commission to study the safety of fluoride in water. Mr. Secretary, we're going to put together a commission to study vaccine safety. And we'll let you know when the report comes out. And he'll be like, yes, great. And then years will pass and nothing has happened. A sophisticated bureaucrat can do a lot to run around an unsophisticated political appointee.
Byron says that when it comes to certain policy positions, subverting the will of the people is justified.
Would it be subverting the will of the people to crush RFK or block him or whatever?
For the most part, the American people don't actually agree with RFK's views on things like vaccines. So, in a literal sense, if you were blocking something he was trying to do to undermine vaccines, you are probably acting in a way that is consistent with what the majority wants.
These unelected bureaucrats are playing God, right? This is really what they do. And it was great. He said a sophisticated bureaucrat can do a lot to affect the outcomes or slow down or whatever he said when it comes to an unsophisticated political appointee. And it just goes to show you the smugness and the level of power that they know they will. Now, mind you, this Byron Cohen, if I'm 46, and I am, this guy's easily 10 years younger than me, if not more. He might be 26 for all I know. This is a young guy, and he's already that entrenched in the deep state, which he already admitted is a real thing. So I remember years ago experiencing what goes on in politics and inside of government and thinking, man, if people only knew how sinister this is. And again, I tell this story every now and again. I worked in the state of New Jersey, and I was appointed by a Republican governor, El Jefe, Governor Chris Christie. And because he was slashing the budget because government was so bloated, they hated him. Of course, they hated him because he wasn't a Democrat. They hated him for a million reasons. And I was in the Department of Children and Families. And everybody was super nice to me because here I am, this Puerto Rican guy that's working here, and they just automatically assume you're one of them. And by one of them, I mean a Democrat. But one day I had gone to Governor Christie's Christmas party, and not the White House, but they call it Drumpthwack at the governor's mansion, had posted a photo of the governor and the guests on their website, and one of my colleagues had seen it. And he literally had to see the look on his face of alarm when he said, what are you doing? What were you doing there? And I said, I got invited to the governor's Christmas party. And he said, why did you go? I said, I didn't want to turn down an opportunity to go to the governor's Christmas party. And I'd never been. And he said, that guy's bad news, man. This guy wants to cut everything. And then, I can only take but so much of trying to be I guess coy, if you will. And where I said, I can't say I'm in opposition to a lot of this. And he's like, he's cutting after school programs because they're being funded by Planned Parenthood. That's not fair. These programs have nothing to do with abortion. And he's cutting these programs anyway because of the funding source. And, you know, I give him the good old shrug look, like, hey, if it fits. And at this point, you know, he made me his enemy. Well, it wasn't too long later that this particular guy, that had no bearing on me, he was just the guy that sat next to me, became the supervisor of the unit I was in through the civil service exam. Now he comes in and he starts making my life impossible, asking me to do things I don't know how to do, things I was never trained to do. I mean, I can tell you, it was just really difficult that I had to ask for a transfer. And where they moved me, he knew all of those people. And they made my life even more difficult, even to the point of saying, oh, you know, they accidentally gave you the wrong travel class when you were appointed. And you actually owe the government, the state treasury now, they reimbursed you for parking, not for parking, but for travel that you were never supposed to be reimbursed for. And they wanted thousands and thousands of dollars back from me. These are some of the things. It's just little old me, right? I was one sub-cabinet person. Just imagine what they can do to the people they really want to go after, right? With malice. Because these guys were just having fun with me, right? Little cat and mouse. The deep state is a serious, serious foe. And that's why when people say, we're going to drain the swamp, I believe we should. It's like pulling the plug. But in Washington, those pipes are rotten. They're clogged. It doesn't matter how many plugs you pull. It doesn't get drained that quickly. And it has nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with how entrenched it is. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a tidbit, a little bit of insight onto that. Great job to James O'Keefe on uncovering the malice here with Byron Cohen. Showing off in front of his would-be girlfriend. Good for him. Anyway, your calls and more coming up. Plus, I got a couple of more things I want to share with you. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm a former prosecutor, so I can tell the difference between a cop and a convict. And Donald Trump just unleashed and released into our communities over 1,000 criminals, many of them who committed violent acts. And nothing about what Donald Trump did erases what those individuals did on January 6th. Nothing erases what they did. But we should erase this concept that Donald Trump and the Republican Party have the backs of law enforcement officers. Donald Trump does not back the blue. He backs the coup.
He probably stayed up all night working on that one. That one is, who is this one again? Eric Swalwell, you know, Fang Fang's boyfriend. And he says that the pardoned J6ers were 1,000 criminals that were released. Now, mind you, on this program, we had Jake Lang, right? 1,400 plus days in pre-trial detention. I don't know what crime he committed, but 4 years in jail before you even see a judge sounds pretty crazy to me. So this, to me, is very rich for Eric Swalwell. He's out of his mind. And not the least of which, after Trump signed that executive order, they're not all out. Many are. Some are not. And that's not cool. We got to get to the bottom of that. Folks, it's Rich Valdez. I appreciate you like you wouldn't believe it. Hasta la próxima. Take care, and God bless you, America. There is more to come straight ahead. I'm Rich Valdez.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national, happy to be here with you, and I want to invite you to call the program. It's now or never, folks. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a few things tonight. Because there's plenty to talk about. I want to do a little bit of a history lesson in a little bit. But before I get into that, some of the big stories today, right? Because there's a lot of talk about a lot of different things. Of course, one of the big things that people are talking about today is President Trump declassifying the files of JFK, RFK, and the MLK assassinations. And this was, promised, and he delivered. I don't believe that we've been able to see what's in these files yet, but the request to have them declassified has been made, and that was signed earlier today, an executive order to declassify those files. And Trump had promised the release of these previously during his 2024 campaign after people have been speculating on this for decades. And we're going to dig into this probably on tomorrow's show. We're going to dig into this a little bit with one of those JFK authors that, kind of wrote the book on this stuff. So stay tuned for that. But one of the things that Trump said, he said, everything will be revealed. I should put on my best Trump voice here. Everything will be revealed. Everything, believe me. And he told reporters that from the Oval Office earlier today. And during the first term of the Trump administration, he promised to release all of the files. And just didn't get to it. So I'm glad that it's actually happening this go round. And let me see. There was also appeals, right? Because of the CIA and the FBI, they blocked Trump from releasing hundreds of these records. Trump at the time saying that the potential harm to the U.S. and national security and foreign affairs was of such gravity that it outweighed the public interest and the immediate disclosure. So I had to backtrack on that. But he's now determined that the continued redaction and withholding of the information from records pertaining to the assassination of President Kennedy is not consistent with the public interest, and the release of the records is long overdue. So Trump's order is now in full effect. So I'm looking forward to seeing that because, I love hearing about a good conspiracy every now and again. And while I don't like engaging too much, I like to hear them. I like to know what's going on. But I really can't dig too far into that stuff. Because why? Because of my experiences, right? And I'm not saying my experiences are vast or anything like that. What I'm saying is that I can only go by what I see, right? And because in my life, I've only seen the bureaucrats win. I've only seen the deep state win. I've only seen the bad guys get away with it, right? I mean, all right, let's see. In my time, we got Rod Blagojevich went to jail. Bill Musto, a mayor in Union City, New Jersey, went to jail. Who am I thinking of? Who else? Kwame Kilpatrick went to jail. It's like a handful of politicians that I can think of off the top of my head that went to jail. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, Menendez, is Menendez going to jail? I think he might go to jail, but I don't know. These are a fraction, right? This is a fraction of the amount of politicians that I would bet have been involved in a lot of wrongdoing. And I'm sure, there's a couple here and there more that I'm leaving out. But the point I'm making is it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare. So ultimately what happens here? That's how it works. I would also say that the majority of drug dealers don't get arrested, right? The majority of traffickers don't get arrested. I think that these are all fair statements. Most bad guys don't get caught. Most. That's just a reality. I think some of us may disagree with what I'm saying because they're thinking, oh, in my town, when they do something, they catch those guys right away. But that's not the reality, right? Look at the amount of fentanyl coming into this country. It gets through our ports. It gets past our border security. We get counterfeit pocketbooks, counterfeit wine, you name it. All sorts of stuff gets into this country. How secure is it? That doesn't mean that people aren't doing their jobs. It just means that bad stuff happens. And when was the last time you heard a massive bootlegger, a counterfeiter, or fentanyl mule getting arrested? Not as many as there are. So that's the point that I make. So when people, every now and again, I'll chime in on Twitter because people will say things like, oh, time to wake up, the reckoning is here, it's the storm, whatever they say. And saying that, people are going to pay. It's not that I don't think people should pay, right? I believe that Anthony Fauci should go to jail for what he did with gain-of-function research, lying to the American people, forcing vaccines on people, ending the livelihoods of so many people. I think that's horrible. But ultimately, he's not in jail. And guess what? He got a pardon. Now, some are going to say the pardon's illegal. Good for you saying the pardon's illegal. Trump's going to have to take this to court and prove it. Now, if he does, great. Then he's off the hook. The pardon doesn't stand, and he can go after them. But until then, there's a process. That's what I'm saying. And typically, the process looks out for the process. That's how I've always seen it. The fact that it goes down in history that these guys literally pardoned their family members, Biden pardoning the Biden crime family, Fauci, Liz Cheney, literally like deep state royalty here. It makes the case for the deep state. It makes the case that they were guilty. Otherwise, they wouldn't need a pardon. So in the annals of history, I think they've screwed themselves. In the reality of getting locked up, they were never getting locked up. Hopefully, one day the phones here will be ringing off the hook. And it'll be you guys saying, you're a blowhard, Valdez. You don't know what you're talking about. You got it all wrong. They're all wearing orange jumpsuits. They all have nooses on their necks. They're death for treason. And we're going to do it at a military base through a tribunal. But that's not happening. It's just not happening. Anyway, something that is happening is how there's a shift in the culture. And Donaldus Magnus El Trumpito, the 45th president of these United States, now the 47th, thank God. A while back when he was on the campaign trail, he made reference to how brutal the media is when referring to him and to us, conservatives, people that believe in making America great, calling us Nazis, calling us Hitler. Listen to this.
What they've done to our country is never, there's never going to be an excuse for what they've done to this country. For the past 9 years, Kamala and her party have called us racist, bigots, fascists, deplorables, irredeemables, Nazis, and they've called me Hitler.
Now, of course, El Trumpito is right. There is no excuse. There's no excuse for what they've done. And this is why we have to pay attention to things. Now, speaking of Hitler, right, because there is a topic that I want to get into on this. I want to go down memory lane a little bit. I want to have a little bit of a history lesson here. There's a book called The Hidden Nazi, The Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil. And I want to dig into it with the author because it's very interesting. And there is a Nazi general named Hans Kammler. This is the guy that designed, or at least altered the design of Auschwitz to increase it in danger, right? To make it more dangerous. It's like the Anthony Fauci of this stuff. He's the gain of function of the Nazis here. To make it more crowded, making sure that epidemic diseases would definitely complement the work of the gas chambers. He wanted these people so on top of each other that they'd get each other sick. And he's a brutal guy. And this Hans Kammler, I want to learn more about him when we come back with our next guest. So keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, Mr. Valdez, you have one of the greatest shows that radio's ever had.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
SS General Hans Kammler, one of the most powerful figures in Nazi Germany, yet hardly known. One of his prior briefs was the construction of death camps. It's alleged that he committed suicide in the final days of the war. Yet recently found documents indicate that he survived. Was he whisked off by the Americans for the knowledge he could provide? Did this spare him being charged as a war criminal at the Nuremberg trials? His fate is still one of history's enigmas.
So just who is this Hans Kammler? Or as the narrator said, Hans Kammler. I want to know who this guy is, and I want to get to the bottom of it with Dean Reuter. He's Senior Vice President at the Federalist Society, and he is also a fellow at the National Security Institute at George Mason University's Antonin Scalia School of Law. Dean Reuter, welcome.
Great. It's great to be with you, Rich. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. Now, I want to talk about this book that you and your colleagues have written, The Hidden Nazi, The Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil. Tell us about, about the book, at large, and how it delves into this deal with the devil, who very well may be General Hans Kammler.
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate the intro from the your produced intro. It covered a little bit of the territory, but this is an amazing story in my book. It reads like fiction. I've been told most of the people who read it say this ought to be a movie or an 8-part Netflix series. But basically, several years ago, a friend of mine from college, Keith Chester, who's on the cover of the book, one of the researchers, reached out to me to try and get me to write a collaboration agreement with our other researcher, Dr. Colm Lowry. The two of them were researching this despicable Nazi SS general, Hans Kammler, who had outsized power, and even for an SS general, he had an extra measure of evil somehow. So I drafted the agreement, and Keith and Colm had this theory that the recorded history about Hans Kammler, the court adjudicated him dead at the end of the war. Their theory was that was not true, and they were out to prove it. So I drafted the agreement, and they started feeding me bits and pieces of information about this Nazi general, and I got intrigued, and I had some experience in the book world, and agreed to be the principal author, and we just went from there.
Now, I'm fascinated by it as well. Again, I don't know too much about Nazi generals. And when I read about this, I thought, man, these guys really kind of took a painstaking approach to making sure that people not only died, but kind of died very miserably. And, this Monday is World Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I wanted to make sure that we took some time to kind of walk through this because, it's a part of history. And I think one that is kind of underrepresented.
I agree. And that was one of the motivators for me in writing this book. I felt like my kids, who are now adults, and their generation doesn't have a real appreciation for World War II or the Holocaust, and really the speed at which an advanced culture can go off the rails and do something so despicable. And our general, Hans Kammler, played a key role in making the Holocaust possible. He was the guy who literally, as an architect and an engineer, designed the concentration camps. He designed the barracks. We have the blueprints, the architectural drawings with his signature on them for the concentration camps barracks. And then he installed the ovens and the crematoria and the entire killing apparatus. And he did it in a way that's, you said they treated people miserably. That's exactly right. He became known in the first part of the war as efficient at mass producing things. And then he turned those skills into the Holocaust. at mass producing death. So he, for example, made sure that the ovens were just above the gas chambers, so they could make the distance over which dead bodies had to be carried shorter. Wow. That's the sort of detail he was interested in. So that was his first, despicable act. Once he got the Holocaust underway, he then turned his skills, such as they are, to slave labor. That's another underappreciated part of the war, that the healthiest of the prisoners that the Nazis collected and captured, those healthiest ones were turned into slaves and made to produce German munitions and German goods and keep the German economy going. But, these were not typical factory conditions. There was this split at the top of the Nazi regime among those who wanted to kill all of the Jews outright and some of those who really wanted to win the war and therefore use the healthiest Jews to help create munitions and help fuel the war machinery. And Kammler is the guy who came up with, I would say, a diabolical sort of fence-straddling answer to that, so that the process became use the healthiest as slaves, but work them to death. Work them in such deplorable conditions that they really didn't have much of a chance of survival. So, there's some philosophical debate over whether the prisoners who got to become slaves as opposed to being instantly killed, whether they were better off or not.
Wow. Talk about being between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, he was a truly bad guy, and he became so well known and so proficient that during the final year of the war, there's something called an Obergruppenführer. That is the highest rank that can be achieved. In the entire war, there were just a handful of people that were elevated to that rank. In the final year of the war, there was only one such person, and that was Hans Kammler. He's the only person to be elevated to Obergruppenführer in the final year of the war. So,
wow, this is quite the story. Let me just remind everybody that we're on with Dean Reuter. He's a senior vice president at the Federalist Society for Law and Public Policy, and he's also a fellow at the National Security Institute at George Mason University's Antonin Scalia Law School. The book we're talking about is The Hidden Nazi, the Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil. And we're talking about Hans Kammler. And I got to tell you, some of the things I want to know, and we're going to take a quick pause here. We're going to come right back with you. But Dean Reuter, I want to know when we come back, what ends up being the fate of Mr. Kammler? Because, by most accounts, it says he was assumed to be killed, this, that, and the other. I guess there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding his death, so I'd love to know his ultimate fate, at least in your opinion, based on your research for this project, as well as the subhead of the book here, America's Deal with the Devil. How does America fit into this with this monster? So looking forward to hearing that. Folks, keep it locked right here. This is just getting good. We're on with Dean Reuter and his book, The Hidden Nazi, the Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with this very interesting topic, the topic of Nazi General Hans Kammler. The book is The Hidden Nazi, the Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil. Our guest is its author, principal author, Dean Reuter, senior vice president at the Federalist Society, and also a fellow at the National Security Institute at the Antonin Scalia Law School. Now, Dean, we left off and I posed a question, and it was why, A, what ends up happening to this guy, and B, why is the subtitle to the book The Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil? How does America fit into this?
You're asking all the right questions, Rich. After perfecting the machinery of the Holocaust, Hans Kammler ends up in charge of all of Germany's secret weapons, their nuclear weapons research, all their munitions, radar, everything you can imagine, but also the V-1 and V-2 rockets. These are the wonder weapons of Germany. And if your readers don't know about the V-2 rocket, it was a piece of machinery that was just fantastically ahead of its time. It was a supersonic rocket that the Americans didn't think could be made, a liquid-fueled rocket. None of the Allies thought that a liquid-fueled rocket could even fly. So he was in charge of that program, along with Werner von Braun. And the deal is, of course, with Kammler, between America and Kammler. The theory was that he moved that rocket team. We know he signed orders to move the rocket team 2 or 3 times to keep them out of the advancing Russians' wake, and then hand-delivered them to the U.S. Army in Bavaria. And we think he did that, which is a hard thing to do, but we think he did that in order to erase his Holocaust past and try and rehabilitate himself in the eyes of the Americans and save his life. The problem with our theory, of course, is that, well, he kills himself at the end of the war. Why would he do that if he had made a deal with the Americans? And the real discovery of the book is, at the end of the war, he surrendered to the U.S. Army. The documents we have found from numerous sources in American archives and other archives from over the world is that Hans Kammler, surrendered to the U.S. Army, and we had him in custody for months and months after the war, after his supposed suicide. So the idea that he made a deal with the Americans to deliver the rocket scientists and get out of jail free card, it really hangs together once you know that hidden piece of the puzzle, that Kammler never died. Didn't die, as reported, didn't die of suicide at the end of the war.
Now, this is also reported for Hitler. A lot of people say the same thing, that he faked his death. It wasn't a real thing. What do you know about that?
Well, I'm skeptical of that. But I will say, Hitler committed suicide, conventional history, in Berlin. That was under the control of the Russians. They were very stingy with details on that, which is what created a lot of the suspicions. But cutting in favor of a theory like that, almost all of the higher-level Nazis had exit plans, what we'd call exit plans today. They knew for a long time that they were going to lose the war, and they started offshoring talent and technology and gold. And a lot of that made its way to the Middle East. A lot of that made its way to South America, and that's where a lot of high-ranking Nazis ended up. So it wouldn't be preposterous to think, well, Hitler would have had his own escape plan. He sat atop the whole structure. And here we've proved that Kammler had his own escape plan. I don't think there's any real evidence. But again, there's a lot of information that we've just never seen. A lot of records are still classified. And some of those records, were just destroyed by the Russians, and we'll never see them. They don't exist. So that's what drives a lot of the conspiracy theories, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's questions, right? There's questions that need to be answered, and it's hard to answer them. Folks, we're on with Dean Reuter. He's the author of The Hidden Nazi, The Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil. So do you think ultimately that Hans Kammler cuts his deal and comes to America and is secretly amongst us, or was once amongst us?
I think so. We know we had him in custody for 11 months, that we took him to Central Austria, interrogated him about missing money, that he was actually in Nuremberg on the eve of the Nuremberg war crimes trials, probably giving background information as part of his deal. I think he went to South America with the help of Americans through what's called the Rat Line, and we describe this in detail. It was a passage through the Alps down into Italy, from which point high-ranking Nazis were able to take steamer ships down to South America, where they were welcomed by dictators that shared a lot of the same viewpoints as Adolf Hitler. So I think he ended up down there. What we know is we had him for 10 or 11 months. We don't know for certain that he went down there. And those records are really difficult to get, the records of the rat farm.
I could only imagine. I wonder why. Dean Reuter, I want you to let everybody know, and if there's anything you want to add, please do. I'm not rushing you, but I want to make sure everybody knows exactly how to find you, how to follow the work that you're up to, and how to get a copy of the book.
Well, they can reach me by email at deanreuter@gmail.com, just my first and last name with no dots or anything like that, at gmail.com. The book's on Amazon. That's where I think most people are getting it. It is in hardback. It's also now in paperback. It's on Kindle and Audible, so people don't even have to read it. They can just listen to it. And it's, I think one interesting aspect of it we didn't cover is I wrote this in first person because my two researchers really wanted to be part of the story. So it tells not only the story of Hans Kammler, it tells about our discovery of the details of his life.
Oh,
even
cool.
including an interview I did with his surviving son.
Oh, wow. What was that like?
That was kind of chilling, Rich. I mean, I had tried to reach out to him. Well, I reached out to him by email. Tried to set up a meeting. Never heard from him. He lived near Hamburg and Bremen, and I just went there. I was over there for other reasons, doing research. I just showed up on his front doorstep, knocked on the door, and I didn't know if there'd be an altar to his father in there or what to expect. It turns out that that's a difficult life to grow up as the son of a Nazi. His son, I think, was more of a communist than anything. He went in the complete other direction. Thought his father was a war criminal, but was still a little bit apologetic. And thought his father was forced into things he wouldn't naturally do. Said he was a good father. But this is so interesting. He was asking me, the son was asking me, it's like, what do you know about where he is? What became of him? So it was mother. It was the mother who had him adjudicated dead so she could get some benefits, government benefits. But the family never believed that he died at the end of the war. So I think he was probably in touch with the mother, but the kids were too young to hold a confidence like that and never found the truth out.
Wow. What a story. Folks, the book is called The Hidden Nazi, The Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil. I guess I have one question for you. Where was this guy trained? Was he trained in Europe? Was he trained in the United States?
Yeah, he trained in Europe. He went to university in what is now Poland. He was born in Stettin, Poland. Interestingly, he had a wife. He had 5 kids, 2 of whom died young, and one of them, this is just remarkable to me, one of them died as an infant in a hospital of gas inhalation when a nurse left a bottle of ether open, and his child died. And then he went on to create the gas chambers. It is just mind-blowing to me. We could never find anything really sympathetic about the guy. But he was trained as an engineer and an architect, and those are the skills he used to engineer the Holocaust and then rule over Germany's secret weapons.
Unbelievable. Excellent book. Excellent story. The Hidden Nazi, The Untold Story of America's Deal with the Devil. Get a copy for yourself, one to give away as well. The author is Dean Reuter. Check him out online. And Dean, I want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate it as we do this preemptive acknowledgement of World Holocaust Day.
It's great to be with you, Rich, and with your audience. Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet. God bless you. And amigos, we continue. We got your calls coming up, plus lots more to discuss on the news of the day. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if the viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And to the phones we go. It's open phones across America. Looking forward to checking in with you guys, we the people. And let's see. We're going to continue our age-old tradition here of open phones, started by the late, great Larry King, continued by the legend Jim Bohannon, and you and me get to carry that torch tonight. Let's go to St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Walter, what's up, my man? You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Thank you, Rich. Always appreciate you. Rich, on that woman preacher that was lecturing Trump, and Rich, you remember when the churches had only men preaching?
Yeah, well, I think they still do. Many of them still do. There's big debate amongst that of women in the ministry. I'm not personally opposed to it, but I've seen, the arguments where they use scripture to argue both sides of it.
Right, exactly. That I'm going to get in trouble, but I'll give you this straight from God's book. At 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 34, actually, let a woman keep silent in the churches, for she is not permitted unto them to speak, for they are commanded to be under obedience. Also saith the law. So that's the way it should be. Not for nothing.
You're on your own there, Walter. Listen, I've sat through some amazing sermons and Bible teachings by women. I've read this passage and some others, and it's one of those things where I think I don't know. I'll be honest. This is an I don't know scenario. I will say again that I've been blessed by women, not the one that we were talking about, right? This particular bishop from the Presbyterian Church or the Episcopal Church that President Trump and Vice President Vance were sitting in with their families. I think she was, I don't want to say out of line, because I do believe it is the pastor's responsibility to advocate for what they feel is important socially. And I think pastors need to be emboldened and be bold to take on the issues of the day if they want to preach life and against abortion. I think that's in their prerogative. It's part of free speech, so it's part of our First Amendment. So I don't think, I could say she was out of line. Do I think it was uncouth? I do. I think she wasn't preaching in that scenario. She was making political statements to the President of the United States. And I think that could have been delivered or couched a little bit more carefully and with more couth. I think it was an uncouth approach. But I get what you're saying, and you're definitely making the case, at least in her case, to have her be quiet in the church. And I appreciate it, Walter. St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Thank you, sir. I want to continue. Where do we go from here? The other side of the country. Let's go to Connecticut, checking in with our buddy Joey. What's up, my man? WLAD. Go for it.
Good evening, Mr. Valdez.
Thank you, sir.
It's an education to listen to you.
Oh, gosh, thank you.
President Trump announced declassification of the 3 assassinations. I wondered if you had any reflections on whether there will be any big surprises when they open those files.
I do think, I don't know what they are. I don't know what these surprises might be, but I do think we're going to see some stuff that we either knew and we're going to be confirmed, or things that maybe we just didn't know. And I would love to see that. And the reason I think why is because I believe President Trump, when he found out the truth about these things and said, oh my gosh, everybody needs to know about this, is likely because they're still doing a lot of this stuff, right? Like kind of like the stuff that they're doing to him, right? And in effect, what they do to all of us. Earlier this evening, I don't know if you were on in the previous hour, but I was talking about some of my experience serving in state government and how the quote unquote deep state made my job and my life difficult right? Trying to hit me financially, trying to change my job assignment, all sorts of things. And that was lowly old me. Imagine what they've done to him. Now this was back in 2011 when I went through all that stuff. But fast forward, a decade and a half, and voila, here we are. So I think it's important to see what we do glean from these JFK, RFK, MLK assassination reports, because I think they're going to be eye-opening and enlightening, and we're going to be able to see how the government actually operates. And I think we're going to see a trend, right? A trend, and we saw a trend with Trump, right? The trend initially started with you're a racist, homophobe, and a xenophobe. And then you're a Nazi, and it's name calling. And then it's whatever they were doing, they were blaming him for. And I think we're going to see a lot of that as well. And there may be some other bombshells. I don't know, but too early to tell. But make sure you tune in tomorrow, because we're going to get into this with one of the most prominent JFK researchers and get his opinion on it as well. Joe in Bethel, you are a gentleman, sir. I appreciate your compliments and your kind words. Thank you very much. Godspeed to you. And I'm going to take a quick pause right here. We're going to come back with the rest of your calls. We got calls from Montana, calls from the Vermont area, and so much more. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with you all. Open phones across America. I want to go to Portland, Oregon. Check in with Dave. Dave is streaming the show online. Dave, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Rich. Love the show. I'm a new listener, and really appreciate all your important topics that you're covering. And especially the other week when you were talking about the wildfires in Southern California, it got me to thinking. I just renewed my homeowner's insurance, and my premiums have more than doubled in 4 years. And
you're not the only one.
I've never filed I've never filed a claim. And the last 3 years, it's been 20% increases year over year. And I feel like I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and I wanted to know, are we subsidizing the areas like Southern California, Florida, and North Carolina? And if we are, is that legal for, my insurance, I won't say the name, but it's a national company. Is there something that we can do to not have to pay for, the other areas of the country?
Dave, excellent question. I don't have an answer on that other than I can respond to saying that this is something I'm going through as well. And literally, perfect timing, right? Before the show, I was on the phone with a dear friend of mine. And we were literally just talking about that. She was like, my homeowners and my auto were bundled, but one of them's going up. The other one is going up, but not as much. And I was telling her that I know an insurance agent that happens to be in the state legislature in New Jersey. And I was like, I'm calling this guy tomorrow to find out, because I got to get mine fixed as well, because my rates are just way too high. So I might bring him on the show as a guest, so maybe he can answer those questions for you. Dave, thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. Sorry I couldn't do more for you on that one, but excellent call, and I appreciate your kind words. Folks, we come back with the rest of your calls and so much more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. We're live, we're national. Happy to be here. It is Thursday night, and our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Looking forward to speaking with you on open phones across America, live and national. And I want to put some attention on this immigration stuff, because a lot is going on. We played a report earlier. Maybe I'll replay it for you from Bill Malugin from the Fox News Channel. But El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 47th and the 45th president of these United States, gave a video address today to the folks in Davos, Switzerland, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab and Yuval Harari and the rest of those crazies. And he spoke about America. He spoke about the need to do the right thing, to stop the border invasion. And I think this is important. And that's why this week, that's what he's talking about. Listen to this.
And this week, I'm also taking swift action to stop the invasion at our southern border. They allowed people to come in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It was ridiculous. I decided and declared to do, and very, very importantly, a national emergency on our border, immediately halted all entry of illegal border crossers, of which there were many, and began promptly returning the illegal trespassers back to the place from which they came. That action, as you've probably seen, has already started very strongly. I've deployed active duty U.S. military and National Guard troops to the border to assist in repelling the invasion. It was really an invasion. We will not allow our territory to be violated. After 4 long years, the United States is strong and sovereign and a beautiful nation. Once again, it's a strong, sovereign nation.
Strong, sovereign nation, and that's what we should be, and we should always be. And I'm happy to hear that. And, of course, this was the way it worked always in America, right? Last night I played you Hillary Clinton back in 2008, saying all those things that, if you break the rules, you should get locked up. You got to wait in line, do the right thing, learn to speak English. There was a time in this country when Democrats believed, just like Republicans believed, that immigration had to be rare but legal, right? Legal immigration. You wait online, you apply for your visa, you do the right thing. We bring in the people that need to be here, like doctors, engineers, whatever, people that were seeking asylum. We brought in 1 million people a year. All of a sudden, the tables turned, and we were bringing in everybody and their mother. And now we have a supply that way outdoes any demand that we have. And it's out of control. But not that long ago, people like Barack Obama were saying the same things that El Trompito was saying. Listen to this.
This is not going to be a free ride. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. What's going to happen is you are going to pay a significant fine. You are going to learn English. You are going to go to the back of the line so that you don't get ahead of somebody who was in Mexico City applying legally. But after you've done these things over a certain period of time, you can earn your citizenship. So that it's not something that is guaranteed or automatic. You've got to earn it, but over time, you give people an opportunity. Now, it only works, though, if you do all the pieces. I think the American people, they appreciate and believe in immigration, but they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it. So we've got to deal with that at the same time as we deal in a humane fashion with folks who have put down roots here, have become our neighbors, have become our friends. They may have children who are U.S. citizens. That's the kind of comprehensive approach that we have to take. All right?
That's the kind of comprehensive approach we have to take. Listen, this is probably why Obama and Trump could sit together at the Carter funeral and have a conversation and kind of chum it up, because they tend to see eye to eye on things. Somewhere in between, Obama went haywire and went hardcore to the left, or maybe he was just acting when he said this. I'm more inclined to believe that. Bottom line was, he knew it, Hillary knew it, and Trump meant it. That this is what Americans believe, the right thing. You have to do the right thing. Well, that's what Trump's doing. You just heard him say that he ordered extra troops and extra manpower to the southern border and to other places, and they've taken a worst first approach to taking care of this illegal immigration situation. And this report I got from the Fox News Channel, I played it a little while ago, but I'm going to play it again just so that you can get it, because, again, it was just so interesting how they went in hardcore, and they went after the most dangerous people, the people that have been arrested multiple times and are being protected by sanctuary cities, the ones that said, oh, you can't come and take our people. But guess what? These nullification rules, they just they don't supersede the United States Constitution, and they definitely didn't supersede these ICE officers today that went in and did their jobs. Listen to this.
Good morning, everyone.
It's a frigid 5 degrees in the pre-dawn hours just outside of Boston, where this team of elite ICE officers is briefing on their targets for the day.
We're going to be targeting some extremely violent offenders today.
Within moments, the officers are on the move, with eyes on their first target.
Looks like we got movement, target vehicle coming out.
They quickly take him into custody. He's an MS-13 gang member wanted in El Salvador for aggravated murder. And he has an Interpol red notice out for his arrest.
We are targeting very violent threats to our community.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
ICE Boston quickly takes down its next targets, including this illegal alien from Brazil who has an Interpol red notice for armed robbery. This Salvadoran illegal alien charged locally with rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Yo, ¿cómo se llama?
And this Dominican illegal alien charged with assault with a deadly weapon and heroin trafficking. Officers also arrested this Guatemalan MS-13 gang member facing gun charges.
Well, there you have it. Music to the ears of many. Murderers being kicked out of the country. Felons being kicked out of the country. People that came here, committed crimes here that weren't supposed to be here are being kicked out of the country. God bless America, right? It's literally just the system working the way it's supposed to work. Paying taxes to have something like ICE and having ICE be able to do their jobs. It's a beautiful thing when it works. Happy to hear it. We need a whole lot more of it, and I'm glad to see the ball is rolling. Here we are, just 3 days removed from Trump taking his oath of office. You got to love it. Anyway, I want to get some perspective on what's going on from you all, the American people. Of course, you know our number, 833-482-5337, as well as from our next guest, who usually has something funny to say. We're scheduled to have Chrissie Mayr join us coming up. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation. And you know who's got a new rap song? Roseanne Barr. Yep, of all people, Roseanne Barr has a new rap song. She did it with Canadian rapper Tom MacDonald. It's a MAGA song. And I'm going to see if we can get that pulled and play it for you in the upcoming segments. But right now, I want to talk to somebody that makes her living in a very, very fun way, making fun of the left and of life through a conservative slant. And you got to love that. I feel like I live my life that way, too. And Chrissie Mayr, she's terrific. And I was looking at some of the videos my producer sent me. And there's this one where she's doing a Greta Thunberg impression. You know Greta Thunberg. How dare you? Anyway, listen to this.
Greta,
Next
hello.
to speaking, Greta Thunberg.
Do you have, did you bring a fanny pack, Greta?
This,
You okay? Would you like some cough syrup? My buddy has some.
this is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean.
Right.
You have stolen my childhood with your racist and sexist humor, pornographic interludes, and excessive T-shirts for sale on the Compound Media website.
Are you saying they're excessively priced, or they're excessive in the amount?
And I'm one of the lucky ones.
Okay.
People are suffering. Brooklyn people are dying. Choking on their own vomit.
They are.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is hongers, basketball Americans, and Trinity St. Clair. How dare you?
That again, Chrissie Mayr. She's a comedian and podcast host. She hosts the Chrissie Mayr podcast, and she's got a comedy album called Live from January 6th. Chrissie Mayr, welcome.
Hi, Rich. It's good to be here.
Likewise, happy to speak with you. Now, I wanted to get your take on a few things, really on just about everything, because it's not every day we talk to comedians, and I love it when we do. I've had some really good conversations with comedians because, you know, the news can get kind of dull, kind of boring, kind of dry, and you need people that see life through humorous eyes to see what's going on. But I want to get your thoughts on this week. Obviously, I just came back from D.C. the day before yesterday. I was in town for the inauguration. It was spectacular, in my opinion.
Ooh,
what are your thoughts?
Did you go to any of the balls?
I went to lots of balls.
Happening?
Lots of balls were going on.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot more than are advertised, right? They talk about like these 3 or 4 big ones, but there's balls all over the place, and you start getting invited by people, which is technically, I guess, crashing. But they're like, "Hey, I'm over here, come by," you know, and they're making it work for you to get in. It was a really good time. I highly recommend it.
One day, I hope to see as many balls as you have, Rich. That's the goal.
Oh, that's good. So. Let's talk about it. What was your thought on Inauguration Day, on the whole process here?
Oh, my gosh. First of all, I watched it from a playpen. I just had a baby 9 months ago.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And as I kind of like prepared new material as a mom, I'm just like, what is the funniest part about being a mom? And I just simply I'm like, oh, it's how my body looks now. I am just funny looking. And I don't know, I guess maybe the gym needs to happen. But to your point, it was so impressive. Trump gave, I think, the best speech he's ever given, like just truly a speech about unity. And I even like how he kind of delved into America's history and but also like he was intimidating at the same time. Like he had very much like a don't F with me this time,
Mm-hmm.
don't F with my family, don't F with our country. Like and just think about like how much he has to do in such a short period of time, get our own country back on track. And he also has to send a message globally that America is, no longer can be kind of trampled on and taken advantage of. And I just think we were kind of in a weak position globally. And I think people are afraid of Trump. It just feels good to have him back in office. And remember when the Democrats won, I'm saying that in quotes, when Biden was installed.
Right. Yes, 2020.
And the Democrats were all saying, thank God the adults are back in charge. They kept saying that the whole time. And look what happened the last 4 years. It's a mess, and Biden's probably the worst president we've ever had. But now it truly does feel like Trump is so focused, and he very much has this like daddy energy that we need right now. And it's fun. The leftists are just melting down, and mainstream media, even though it's like it's death throes, still the TDS has been reinvigorated, and I guess they'll be able to coast off that for the next 4 years.
Yeah, it looks like they're having withdrawal. And, it's funny you say that because the song I mentioned on the way in, that Roseanne Barr song that she just released, that's what it's called. It's called Daddy's Home.
Oh, my gosh. That's the best. Like, if you had told me in the 90s, like, look, Roseanne Barr is going to, fast forward to 2025, Roseanne Barr is going to be bigger than Madonna, better looking than Madonna, and kind of like more culturally relevant. I wouldn't have believed you, but it's funny. It's
and
like,
drop a rap song.
And have a rap song. Yeah. Roseanne's crushing it. It's just so funny to see her in that. And it's, Tom definitely knows how to make news with his cameo appearances on his songs. I think he had Ben Shapiro on one of the other ones too.
I'm waiting for my invitation. I want to be in a rap song.
You just have to go to more balls. I think it's coming for you.
More balls for me. That's
more
funny, folks.
balls.
We're on with Chrissie Mayr, comedian and podcast host. Make sure you subscribe to her podcast. It's called the Chrissie Mayr Podcast. Mayor, excuse me. And she's got a comedy album called Live from January 6th. Now, we got 2 minutes to go before the break, and then I want to get a quick take from you on something you mentioned, because I think it's an important thing. I have 2 daughters, a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old, and I love being a dad.
Oh, boy.
It's challenging, but I love it. It's become a real part of how I identify, quote unquote. What's motherhood been like for you?
Oh, my God. They really weren't kidding when they said, like, enjoy your sleep now. You're not going to get it ever again. My boobs are exhausted. Like, my boobs have gotten more action in the last 9 months than really in my whole sort of, I'm going to say 40. I'll say 29 years of life. It's wild being a mom. It's so humbling. But it's better than being pregnant for sure, because I remember when I was pregnant, they were like, you can work out, but you can't get your heart rate above 150 beats per minute. And I was like, why? And they were like, well, because the baby will be gay. And I was like, well, we don't want that.
Oh, snap.
It was like Speed, the movie Speed, but it was happening inside me.
Oh, boy.
It's good. It's good not to be pregnant, but it's nice. I feel like there's just a whole slew of material, and every day something funny is happening. I'm getting like spit up on, and it's like
I'm glad you find that funny.
Yeah.
It wasn't funny when it was happening to me. Oh boy.
It's insane. I'm so sleep deprived. If I even form one coherent sentence on this call, it'll be a success.
Oh, you're doing terrific. Folks, again, we're on with Chrissie Mayr. We're coming right back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about her comedy album, What's to Come, post-motherhood, and more of her hot takes on what's going on in the news today. Her podcast, the Chrissie Mayr Podcast, is something I recommend you subscribe to. Check her out on X as well, at Chrissie Mayr. And we're coming right back. It's me, Rich Valdez, and our guest, Chrissie Mayr. We're live, we're national, and the phone number's 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-4-VALDEZ. Your calls and more are coming up, plus our conversation with Chrissie Mayr. Don't go anywhere.
You, of course, have a track record now. People have heard you, and they know that, in fact, you've got the goods. You have the talent, and you have the ability to do a superb job.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
You know, when I was in D.C. this week, the rapper from the reggaeton genre, Anuel, He was in Puerto Rico. He was in Puerto Rico. He was in D.C., and I did not bump into him, so I don't know if there's a collab there, but I would love one. Anyway, I want to get back into our conversation with Chrissie Mayr. She's the host of the Chrissie Mayr podcast, and she's got a comedy album called Live from January 6th. Chrissie Mayr, you're a brand new mom, and you're helping me come up with new taglines here. Like one of my taglines here is he's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. I think we're going to change it to he's brown, he's bald, and he's been to more balls than Biden. I don't know. How does that work?
I still can't get over the way you said reggaeton. I might have to record that and play it when I'm by myself at nighttime.
Ay, bendito. Those are my Puerto Rican roots showing. Anyway.
Oh, you're Puerto Rican. Okay.
Somebody call security. Don't call ICE. Anyway, the bottom line.
Any relation to Juan Valdez?
That is my dad's real name. And my whole life, I was taunted by this. They're like, your dad's name? I was like, Juan Valdez. And it was always a thing. It was always a thing. What a great guy. And my dad was my dad was a bouncer in the back of a bodega in Brooklyn for an illegal gambling operation. That was his side hustle for most of my youth. And it was great. I'd go back there. They treat me like royalty. And they had like these Joker poker slot machines. It was insane. And that was all normal when I was a kid. By the time I was like in 5th grade, I was like, the other kids don't quite do this. And I figured out it was
That's like
something
the
we
most
did.
Puerto Rican thing possible.
yeah. And then they play dominoes out front in front of the bodega. It was a vibe. It was definitely a vibe.
Oh, wow.
So, but enough about me. I want to hear about you because I've always wanted to know what is it. I think there's a lot of people that think they're funny, and there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, I want to be a comedian," and and they fail, and they fail miserably, right? And they might be funny, but comedy is, to me, being a stand-up comic. Let me preface my statement here. Being a stand-up comic to me is one of the hardest jobs I can think of. You need timing, you need delivery, you need wit. You need balls. You need so much to make it happen. And
you need alcohol. Don't forget the alcohol.
Don't forget. And I feel like, you could be a funny person, but it doesn't mean that you can get on stage and be a funny person. So, how did this work out for you? And when did you know this is what I'm going to do?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. You have to have, I think, low self-esteem or mental illness or like to be bullied as a kid or something like that. I think it was maybe a combination of like slight daddy issues. I felt like I couldn't really like express myself too much growing up. Like my dad was among the last great white landscapers of our time before your kind took over the industry, Rich. And we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I'd always want things like a skip it or like moon shoes or something, and my dad would be like, money doesn't grow on trees. I'm like, Dad, you're a landscaper. I feel like they do.
You cut down the trees.
You cut down the trees. Yeah. It was, but it's weird because I always thought I wanted to be a reporter. And so I interned at Dateline NBC when I was in college, and I worked with Stone Phillips. And by worked with Stone Phillips, I mean I got him coffee and printed things out. And I just was like, this is so boring. I can't. There's no way I could do this. Then I interned.
Now, did you want to be a reporter, like with a pad in your hand, asking questions, or like an anchor where you were delivering like a newscast?
I wanted to be out somewhere with a raincoat, like blowing away in a hurricane. I think like I wanted to be just like the hot sort of local reporter that isn't under too much pressure and just mostly is cute. And I was like, what? I have to move out where? To Alaska? No, it's not. And then so I interned at Late Night with Conan O'Brien when he was still in New York before he moved to LA. Wow. And that's when I realized, like, okay, comedy, these are my people. I don't know exactly what I'll do, but this feels like my speed. And then I did improv for many years, which if you don't know what improv is, it's like a very useless activity, but it does build good skills that you could use. There's like
isn't improv like doing live radio?
Improv like theater games, like like Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's like grown men and women spending $500 to like bark like a dog after work once a week, you know, and then like a lot of guys that are like trying to meet women. But I did that for a while, and then I started stand up. God, at this point, probably like 14, 15 years ago, and I just never. I always worked a day job, always, because like my parents, you know, they wouldn't let me forget. Like, we paid for college. You have to have health insurance.
What did you go to college for?
Oh, God, communications, which is kind of useless. But you know what? Here I am communicating. So I guess I'm using my degree.
Look at you. Call your mom and dad.
They're both dead, but
mine too. Mine too.
Oh.
Sorry.
All right. Dead Parents Club. Yeah, my mom was like, Chrissie, I'm from Long Island. She was like, go to school, study hard, and when you graduate, you could be anybody's assistant you want. You know, she had very high hopes for me. She's like, Chrissie, you could work in a hotel one day. You know, you keep at it. Her greatest ambition for me was like, maybe I would work at a hotel, like as a receptionist or something. It was very cute. And then, so yeah, just started doing improv, and then always worked a job on the side, always. And for anybody out there, like just work a job on the side, and then like get to a point where your side hustle, you could possibly make a living from it. And then the last job I had, I worked there for 6 years. It was like a corporate media firm, and over the the lockdowns happened. I was working remotely, and then they wanted everybody to come back into the building, but I refused to get vaccinated because I was like, I think I want to try to have a baby, and I knew I just had my suspicions, you know. And I was like, ooh, and they're like, well, we're going to fire you. We're going to consider you voluntarily resigned, and then I couldn't collect unemployment or anything like that. But my boss hated me because he knew that I went to January 6th, and I knew he wanted to fire me for that. But
at least the SWAT team didn't visit you at work.
I know. I took the day off, so he signed off on it, so they couldn't fire me for that. And he was mostly very pissed because he found out that actually I was on the Megyn Kelly podcast talking about how chill January 6th was from my perspective. I was like, the media's blowing it up. It really wasn't that big a deal. Like, the side of the building that I was on, it just wasn't like anything you saw on the mainstream media. There were dogs in costumes. There were like people having picnics. There were kids, food trucks. It was like, I had a great time. It was a grand old time. And so he read it in like the news basically, and he freaked out because then my politics were made very much aware to him, and he was like classic, like limousine liberal type, like millionaire, like high-powered media goon.
So he fired you, and he said, you're going to become a really good comedian.
He didn't say that in so many words. He was like, you're going to be a liability, because he realized that I was a Trump voter and maybe slightly bigger comedian than he realized. But yeah, they fired me because of the vaccine, and but it all happened for a reason. You know, it allowed me to go full time, and then YouTube kind of took the place, income wise, what I was making at my day job. So it all worked out. And now I don't have to wear pants. Yeah.
Great. It's radio. None of us wear pants. What's it like now, where you're being a comedian full time and a mom, and I guess you're making your own schedule, and you have another tour coming up? What's the story?
Oh yeah, it's well, we're waiting for the baby to stop nursing for me to go back on tour, or whenever the teeth come in, whichever comes first. Because once the teeth come, woo, I'm gonna just be like, all right, I'm going to start making you sandwiches now, buddy. And because he started to bite. He has gums, but he bites anyway, and then he looks at me and then laughs. So maybe he is trying to be funny in his own little way, for sure. But yeah, I'm doing one-on-one interviews on my YouTube channel, and I do panel shows. I have a show every Sunday called Simpcast, which is usually all ladies, and we're talking about, culture and news, and it's usually like a different mix of girls each week.
You said it's called Simpcast?
Simpcast, yeah, Simpcast.
So you're talking about the simps of the world?
Yes, and the Simpsons, which I love that show. No, it's like a play on words over like simp, which is like, you know, a fan of a girl, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I'll just do, you know, one-on-one interviews. I've had like political folks on, like Sebastian Gorka or Roger Stone or whoever, and then I'll also have maybe random journalists. And I'm working on trying to get some of these J6ers who have, you know, been pardoned and try to get their take on, you know, the last few years. Because I
interviewed one from jail, Chrissie Mayr.
Oh wow!
And he just got out yesterday.
Were you the conjugal visit? Did you have to?
There was a phone line in between us, ma'am.
Okay.
It's radio. I don't wear pants. And he just got out. And it's funny. I was at one of the balls, believe it or not, talking to somebody from Newsmax, and she got a text, and she said, "Oh my gosh, Jake Lang is out." So I recommend Jake Lang.
Wow.
He's a good interview.
Yes, I've heard of him. I think I follow him on Twitter.
1,400 days in jail without ever seeing a judge.
What is that in years? Quick.
4.
Find
years.
an Asian. Okay. I can't do my own math. 4 years. Wow.
Crazy, right? Yeah, it really is. Anyway, Chrissie Mayr, excuse me. I want to make sure everybody can find you. Tell them where to find you, how they get you, and where to go to get the podcast.
Oh, yes. YouTube, and then there's also the Spotify, SoundCloud, really wherever you get your podcast. You could listen to the audio version there as well. But yeah, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter at Chrissie Mayr. That's ChrissieMayr. And as soon as I have new dates out, I will be shouting them far and wide. And if my baby starts growing teeth, then it'll be even sooner.
Well, whenever you have those dates, I'm happy to have you on to let people know where they could find you live. And I wish you Godspeed with the baby and his teeth. May they be slow or fast, however works better. And good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. God bless. And amigos, we will continue with your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Let's go to Evergreen, Montana. Open phones across America. Frank on KOFI. Go for it.
Hi there, Rich. Yeah,
Hey,
what
Frank.
I want to talk about is Montana is really getting a bad, one of the worst places to live reputation because of the too much legalized marijuana here, and it's recreational pot. And my gosh, there too many people are getting in wrecks. They're not paying any attention. They're going into the ditch. There's wrecks all over the time, and it's practically every day. I've never seen it so bad, and it's. What it's doing is they're saying, well, we need the revenue for the roads and everything like that. Oh, my God. But
Man, well, I'll tell you, Frank, this is kind of crazy. But what did they expect was going to happen when you said, we're going to make recreational marijuana legal? Great. In New Jersey, for example, they did that. And they even changed the rules for cops. They now said cops, if they're drug tested, can fail the drug test if marijuana comes up because they can always claim that they were smoking weed recreationally over the weekend. And this is problematic for a lot of people. I have a buddy that lost a job and is in a lawsuit because he's a crane operator. And they said, "Oh, you failed the test." And he said, "Well, I smoked weed over the weekend and not at work. And you've got to be able to prove it. It's not that easy. And when the cops pull you over because you're, driving too slow, whatever the case is, guess what? What are they going to do? How do they give you the driving under the influence ticket if they can't prove that you are? There's no breathalyzer for weed. So, in effect, what you've done is you've just made it okay to turn the other way and look the other way. And to add insult to injury, in New Jersey, when they came out with this law, they said if you're a minor, just because of this law, it was the craziest thing, they would not inform your parents if you were pulled over for driving while smoking weed. Why that helped anybody, I don't know. I'm thinking most of these kids are driving their parents' car anyway. But it's kind of crazy, and it doesn't surprise me that there are more accidents or whatever, because people were always driving stoned. However, they were, I think, a little fewer and far between because they didn't want to get caught. Now they're like, oh, what are they going to do? They can't catch me. This stuff's legal. And that's, I think that's part of the problem. Frank in Evergreen, Montana, thank you for the call, my brother. KOFI in the building. Let us continue. Let's go to Joe, Salem, Arkansas, KSAR in the building. What's up, Joe?
Hey, let me preface this with I'm not part of the war on women like I get accused of. But I agree with Walter. I was going to bring that up anyway. But the women are, there's reasons why God has a hierarchy, and women to remain silent in the church. Now, I've learned a lot from women and at Bible studies and this and that, but as far as leading the church, and she was really inappropriate. I felt bad for President Trump on that one.
I agree, and so did I. I felt like he was put in a position where he just had to sit there and be gracious. And that is part of the job, right? Sometimes as president, you're going to get ridiculed, attacked, assailed, criticized, all of those things. And I agree with you that it was rough. Do I think she was out of line in her delivery? Probably. Out of line in saying whatever she felt like? No, because I think you get, as a preacher, you get that license. Now I'm going to tell you a story, Joe. And again, this is just real life, right? I get conflicted sometimes with real life. My pastor, I went to this church for probably 25 years. Just switched to a new one. It's a little closer to my home. But the church I was at for 25 years, started going there as a teenager. And the pastor recently passed away in a motorcycle accident. And his wife is the senior pastor now. Excellent preacher, serious woman of God, very much like her husband, great nurturer, good pastor, good leader. And I could not say that, this woman should be silent in the church because she's terrific. Now, would she say something like that Bishop said to President Trump? No, absolutely not. She's very fond of President Trump and a lot of the things I think you and I probably both agree on. So I get it. I do understand the premise of that passage from 1 Corinthians, but I just don't know that I'm there. Maybe that's somebody needs to pray for me. Folks, we're coming right back. Joe, I appreciate it. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Amigos, we're offering the show in some new markets, so I need you to call in about an hour earlier. Tony, WVMT, go right ahead quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say that the Republican Party has to...
You're right. Trump and Green are doing their thing. God bless America. I'm Rich Valdez.